My mother wants me to transfer my apartment so her boyfriend can live in it rent-free. I said no. She stopped speaking to me. 6 months later, I got a call. Original post. I was 25 when my parents divorced. After 27 years of marriage, my mother sat my father down and announced she wasn't happy. Hadn't been for years. Wanted something more from life. My father was blindsided. They'd had their problems. What couple married that long doesn't? But he thought they were managing. Thought they'd grow old together. Instead, he came home one day to find her suitcase packed and her decision final. I was caught in the middle, trying to be a good son to both of them while they divided up nearly 3 decades of shared life. The divorce was messy. Arguments about the house, the retirement accounts, years of resentment surfacing in lawyers' letters. Eventually it settled. My mother got half the house value, my father kept the house. Both started over in their 50s. I tried to support both of them while building my own life. At 26, after 7 years of aggressive saving, living with roommates, driving an old car, skipping vacations, I bought a small apartment. $142,000. Nothing fancy, but mine. 2 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, a 20-minute commute to work. My own space, away from the family drama. I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong. 1 year after the divorce, my mother announced she was dating someone. I was supportive, genuinely. She'd spent 27 years in an unhappy marriage. She deserved to find someone who made her smile. I told her I was happy for her, that I couldn't wait to meet him. Then I met him. The boyfriend was 32 years old. My mother was 53 at the time. A 21-year age gap. He was younger than me by 4 years. I tried to be open-minded. Age is just a number, consenting adults, love is love. I repeated all the progressive mantras to myself. But something felt off from the first handshake. He was charming, yes. Good-looking, certainly. He had this way of making my mother light up when he walked into a room, touching the small of her back, calling her beautiful in front of people. But beneath the charm, something was evasive. Questions about his job got vague answers about being between opportunities. Questions about where he lived before my mother produced mentions of staying with a friend while he figured things out. Questions about his plans generated elaborate descriptions of business deals and investments coming together that never seemed to materialize. He was unemployed. Had been, as far as I could tell, for the entire time they'd been together. He claimed a back injury prevented him from working, but I watched him carry my mother's groceries upstairs without any visible limitation. The injury seemed to only flare up when employment was mentioned. Over the past year, I watched the relationship intensify while the red flags multiplied. My mother pays for everything. Every dinner, every trip, every piece of clothing on his back. She bought him a new phone when his broke. She pays his half of the meals even when they split a check with friends. She funded a weekend getaway to the coast that he apparently surprised her with, using her credit card. He moved from his friend's couch to my mother's rented apartment within 3 months of them dating. He doesn't contribute to rent. Doesn't pay utilities. The one time I visited and asked about grocery contributions, my mother quickly changed the subject while he suddenly needed to use the bathroom. He doesn't cook. Doesn't clean. Plays video games while my mother works her 9-hour shifts at the hospital. When I stopped by unannounced one afternoon, I found him sprawled on the couch in his boxers, controller in hand, empty energy drink cans on the coffee table. My mother came home an hour later, exhausted from work, and immediately started cooking dinner while he asked what was taking so long. He's between opportunities, my mother explained when I tried to raise concerns. I don't mind supporting him temporarily. He's looking for the right position. The right position, apparently, was horizontal on her couch. I started doing the math. Conservative estimates. Dinners out, $400 a month. His phone bill, $100. Clothes and personal items, $200. His share of the rent he never pays, $800. Trips and entertainment, variable but significant. Added up over a year and my mother had spent at least $25,000 on this man. That's half her divorce settlement. Gone. Transferred from her bank account to his lifestyle. She dipped into savings. Taken on credit card debt. All while he played video games and waited for opportunities. The comparison game started about 6 months in. Every conversation with my mother now included praise for the boyfriend and subtle criticism of everyone else. He's so romantic. Your father never brought me flowers. He makes me feel beautiful. You don't understand what that means to a woman my age. He's not always criticizing me like your father did. Like you do. That last one stung. I wasn't criticizing her. I was worried about her. But in her mind, any question about the relationship was an attack on her happiness. Then came the lunch invitation. Just the two of us, she said. No boyfriend. That was rare now. He was usually present for everything, a silent audience to our conversations. We met at a restaurant near her work. She was nervous, which I noticed immediately. Fidgeting with her napkin. Ordering wine at noon. Making small talk about weather and work and traffic while clearly building up to something. After the entrees arrived, she finally got to the point. I need to ask you something important. About your apartment. My stomach tightened. I set down my fork. He and I are serious, she continued. We're talking about the future. Maybe marriage. Marriage. To a man she'd known for a year. A man who'd contributed nothing. But we need stability, she said. My rental is too small and too expensive. Your apartment is perfect. Good location, 2 bedrooms, affordable neighborhood. I want you to transfer it to my name. I stared at her. Waited for the punchline. It didn't come. You're my only child, she continued. Everything I have will go to you eventually. When I die, the apartment comes back to you in my will. So it's not really giving it away, it's just letting me use it during my lifetime. Meanwhile, he and I can build a life there. A real home. She reached across the table and touched my hand. You're young, single, you can rent somewhere or stay with friends. This is about my happiness in my final decades. Don't I deserve happiness after everything I've been through? I pulled my hand back. Is this his idea? She hesitated just long enough for me to have my answer. We discussed it together. He feels bad that I'm paying for everything. He wants to contribute somehow. If we had a stable home base, he could focus on finding work, building something. Right now the instability is holding him back. I translated silently. The boyfriend wants to live rent-free in my apartment while contributing nothing. His contribution would be accepting free housing. This was his grand gesture. I said what I was thinking. Mom, I bought that apartment with my money. 7 years of saving. It's my security, my future. I'm not transferring it so your boyfriend of 1 year can have free housing. Her face hardened. Something shifted behind her eyes. It's not about him. It's about me. Your mother. Who sacrificed everything to raise you. Who worked double shifts so you could go to college. Who gave up her 20s and 30s and 40s for this family. Who is spending her divorce settlement on a man who won't work, I interrupted, while asking her son to give up his apartment. The table next to us went quiet. I'd spoken louder than I intended. My mother's voice dropped to a hiss. How dare you? You don't know him. You've never given him a chance. He makes me happy. Doesn't that matter? For the first time in 30 years, I feel alive. Beautiful. Wanted. And you want to take that away because you're jealous or judgmental or whatever this is. I'm not taking anything away. I'm keeping what's mine. There's a difference. You're my son. Doesn't that mean anything? It means I'm worried about you. Not jealous. A man 22 years younger who doesn't work, who you pay for everything, who now wants my apartment. Don't you see the pattern? She played the age card. Age doesn't matter when you love someone. You're young, you don't understand. Someday you'll meet someone who makes age irrelevant. Maybe, I said. But I probably won't ask my children to give up their apartments for that person. Especially if they've never contributed anything financially to the relationship. The will manipulation came next. She shifted tactics, her voice becoming reasonable, persuasive. I'll put it in my will. Legally documented, the apartment returns to you when I pass. You lose nothing long-term. You just give up use of it for a few decades. A few decades? I did the math out loud. You're 54. You could live another 40 years. I'd be giving up my apartment in my 20s based on a promise for my 60s. That's not inheritance planning. That's a con with extra steps. You think I would do that to my own son? Change my will. 3 years ago, I would have said you'd never leave Dad for a man younger than your son. Things change. People change. Wills can be changed too. She didn't have an answer for that. Just stared at me like I was a stranger. I went home that night and did what I should have done months earlier. I researched the boyfriend. Not through a private investigator. Just basic social media digging. His accounts were mostly private, but the internet leaves traces. I found his previous girlfriend. The friend whose couch he'd been sleeping on before moving in with my mother. She wasn't just a friend. She was a 47-year-old woman he'd dated for 2 years. He was 30 at the time. They'd broken up 6 months before he met my mother. I reached out to her. Carefully, respectfully. Explained who I was and why I was asking. She responded within hours. Her story was my mother's story, just further along. She'd paid for everything during their relationship. Dinners, clothes, trips, his bills. When she ran out of liquid savings, he'd convinced her to refinance her house. When the money from that dried up, he left. 2 years of her life and her financial security, gone. Before her, there had been another woman. Another older woman. Another financial drain. Another exit when the funds ran out. The boyfriend wasn't looking for love. He was looking for hosts. I presented my findings to my mother. Printed screenshots. Timelines. The ex-girlfriend's own words. A clear pattern. Older women, financial exploitation, disappearance when the money stopped. He's done this before, I said. At least twice. He finds women who are lonely, makes them feel special, drains them financially, moves on when there's nothing left. You're not his girlfriend. You're his current source of income. My mother looked at the evidence. Really looked at it. Then she pushed it away. Those women weren't me. Those relationships weren't what we have. You're trying to destroy my happiness with internet stalking. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need support. And clearly I'm not getting it from you. I talked to my father. Awkward, given everything, but he was still her family in a way. He'd already heard rumors through mutual friends. I'm worried about her, he admitted. But she won't listen to me. We're divorced. She thinks I'm bitter, trying to sabotage her. I talked to my aunt, my mother's sister. She'd tried to have the same conversation and been cut off for 2 months. The boyfriend had isolated my mother from anyone who questioned the relationship. Classic manipulation playbook. A week after my conversation with my mother, the boyfriend called me directly. That had never happened before. We'd barely exchanged more than pleasantries. His voice was friendly. Too friendly. Dripping with false warmth. Hey man, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I really love your mom. I just want to make her happy. This apartment thing, it's not about me. It's about giving her stability. I know I haven't been earning much, but I've got some things in the works. Big opportunities. Once they come through, I'll pay your mom back for everything. This is just a rough patch. You've been in a rough patch for our entire relationship with my mother, I said. And before that with 2 other women. The apartment isn't happening. Silence on the line. When he spoke again, the friendliness was gone. His voice was flat, cold. That's too bad. Your mom is going to be really disappointed. He hung up. That call told me everything. He wasn't trying to connect with me. He was trying to manage an obstacle. I was the son who might block his housing. Once he realized I wouldn't budge, the mask slipped. 3 days later, my mother delivered her ultimatum. She'd clearly rehearsed it, probably with his coaching. I've thought about it. If you won't support my happiness, maybe you're not the son I thought you were. If you don't transfer the apartment, I'm changing my will. You'll get nothing from me. And I'll reconsider our relationship entirely. She paused for effect. Is keeping that apartment worth losing your mother? I took a breath. Let it out slowly. I'm not transferring my apartment to fund your boyfriend's lifestyle. If you want to cut me out of your will, that's your choice. If you want to end our relationship, that's also your choice. But I'm not making decisions based on threats. It's not a threat. It's a consequence. A consequence from a will worth almost nothing, I said quietly. Because you've spent most of it on him already. You're threatening me with an empty inheritance to get me to give up a real apartment. The math doesn't even work. She flinched. I continued before she could recover. He's using you. Someday you'll see that. I hope it's before you lose everything. When that day comes, I'll still be your son. The apartment will still be mine. And I'll help you however I can, but not by giving away my security to a con artist. She didn't respond. Just walked away. Got in her car. Drove off. We didn't speak for 3 months. Update 1. The silence. I got updates through my aunt. My mother and the boyfriend were still together. Finances were getting worse. Credit cards maxed out. My mother was considering selling her car to cover expenses. The downward spiral I'd predicted was happening in real time. I couldn't stop it. Could only watch and wait. I threw myself into work. Went to the gym more often. Tried to build a life that didn't revolve around worrying about my mother's choices. It didn't fully work, she was always in the back of my mind, but I functioned. Paid my bills. Kept my apartment. The apartment she wanted me to give away. My aunt kept me updated. She's lost weight. Not in a healthy way. She looks tired all the time. But she won't hear anything negative about him. It's like she's under a spell. Isolation is part of the playbook. Cut the target off from anyone who sees through the con. Make them dependent on you for emotional support while draining them of financial support. I'd read about it. Didn't make it easier to watch. Update 2. The deterioration. Month 4. My aunt reported that my mother had sold her car. She's taking the bus to work now. A 54-year-old woman who works on her feet all day, taking buses. Meanwhile, he's still sitting at home, still playing video games, still waiting for his opportunities. Month 5. My mother's credit was shot. Collections agencies calling. The boyfriend had convinced her to open a credit card in her name for him to use. He'd maxed it out. She couldn't pay the minimum. I considered intervening. Considered showing up, forcing a conversation. But what would I say that I hadn't already said? She'd chosen him over me. Over evidence. Over her own financial survival. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Some nights I wondered if I was being too harsh. If I should have given her the apartment just to maintain the relationship. Just to have her in my life. Then I'd remember, she wasn't asking for help. She was asking me to enable her exploitation. There's a difference between support and surrender. I held my ground. Update 3. The beginning of the end. Month 5.5. My aunt called with news. The boyfriend had been seen with another woman. Someone from his gym, which my mother paid for, of course. A woman who looked to be in her late 40s. Recently divorced. Apparently they'd been talking for weeks. My mother found out. There was a confrontation. Screaming, accusations, denials, more screaming. The boyfriend swore it was innocent. My mother wanted to believe him. She believed him. But something cracked. My aunt said she could hear it in my mother's voice. The blind devotion was weakening. Doubt was creeping in. Too little, too late. But maybe, a crack in the foundation. Update 4. The collapse. 6 months after her ultimatum, I got a call. My phone screen showed my mother's name for the first time since that day at the restaurant. I answered. She was crying. Hyperventilating. I could barely understand her through the sobs. He's gone. He left. He took everything. I sat down heavily. What happened? The story came out in fragments. He'd been acting distant for weeks. Less affectionate. Spending more time out with friends. She'd thought it was a phase. Thought if she was just supportive enough, patient enough, loving enough, he'd come back around. That morning, she'd gone to work as usual. Left him sleeping in her bed, in her rented apartment that she paid for entirely. When she came home, he was gone. His clothes, his video games, his toiletries, all gone. And so was her bank account. The $3,000 she had left, money she'd been planning to use for rent and utilities, transferred to an account she didn't recognize. Her savings, her checking, her emergency fund. All of it, gone. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. She read it to me, voice shaking. Sorry, babe. This isn't working. Need to find myself. Thanks for everything. Not, I'm sorry. Just, sorry, babe. Like she was an inconvenience he was shaking off. Thanks for everything. Like she was a hotel he'd checked out of. That note told her what she'd been to him. Took 18 months and $25,000 to get that clarity. Some lessons are expensive. Update 5. The aftermath. I went to her apartment that night. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 6 months. Thinner than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair unwashed. The apartment was messy. She'd clearly stopped caring about keeping things up since he left. I didn't say, I told you so. I wanted to. Some small, petty part of me wanted her to hear those words, wanted that validation. But looking at her, destroyed and humiliated and broke, I couldn't do it. It would have served nothing except my own ego. Instead, I just listened. She told me everything. How he'd made her feel special in the beginning. How no one had ever called her beautiful before, not even my father in their good years. How he'd listened to her talk about her day like it mattered. How the physical affection had filled something hollow in her that she'd been carrying for decades. "I thought I found love," she said. "Real love, for the first time. I thought I deserved it after everything. After settling for your father, after giving up on my dreams, after spending my whole life taking care of everyone else." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I was so stupid." "You weren't stupid," I said. "You were lonely. He knew that. He used it." She broke down again. I held her while she sobbed. My mother, who I'd been furious at for 6 months, crying in my arms like a child. This was what I'd been trying to prevent. This broken woman who'd been used and discarded. And some part of me ached with the knowledge that she'd had to hit rock bottom before she could see what I'd been showing her all along. We spent the next week dealing with practicalities. Cancelled cards, changed passwords, filed a police report. The report was probably futile. Everything she'd given him had been given willingly. Gifts aren't legally theft. But it was documented, just in case. The financial damage was significant. $25,000 plus spent on him over 18 months. Credit cards maxed. Savings gone. And he'd taken the last $3,000 on his way out the door. She was behind on rent, behind on utilities, facing collections on the credit card debt. She'd need years to recover. But she was alive. She had her job. And she had her son, the one who wouldn't give up his apartment. Resolution. The recovery was slow. My mother couldn't afford her apartment anymore. We found her a small studio in a cheaper neighborhood, less than half the size of her old place, but manageable on her salary. I helped with first and last month's rent, helped her move the few possessions she still had. She started therapy. Actually helpful therapy, not the couples counseling the boyfriend had manipulated her through in month 8. She was processing not just the relationship but the divorce, her self-esteem, the vulnerability that made her such easy prey for someone who said the right things. The apology came 3 months after his departure. We were having coffee at her small studio apartment, surrounded by boxes she still hadn't unpacked. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not for the first time, but this time felt different. Final. You saw what I couldn't see. You tried to show me, and I chose him over you. I almost lost you over a man who saw me as a bank account." She wiped her eyes. "You were the only one who was really supporting me. Everyone else was just taking." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just reached across and squeezed her hand. 1 year later. My mother lives in her small studio apartment. It's modest, nothing like the life she imagined at 55. But it's hers. She's rebuilding her finances slowly, one paycheck at a time. The credit card debt will take years to pay off, but she's making progress. She's not dating. "I need to learn who I am first," she told me. "I've spent my whole life being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's host. I need to figure out what I actually want before I give myself to anyone else." It's the healthiest thing I've ever heard her say. The boyfriend was spotted on social media a few months after he left. New woman. 49, recently divorced. They were in Italy together, a trip she'd posted about excitedly, tagging him in every photo of every expensive dinner he obviously wasn't paying for. My mother saw the post. She'd been keeping tabs, the way you can't help but keep tabs on someone who hurt you. She called me that night, upset at first, but then something shifted. "It's her now," she said. "I'm not special. I never was. I was just next in line." Brutal clarity. But necessary. The cycle continues. Somewhere out there, an older woman is being charmed, being made to feel beautiful and wanted and alive for the first time in years. And she's paying for it, in every sense. Final reflection. She spent $25,000 on him in 18 months. Dinners, clothes, trips, his phone, his rent. And he wanted more, my apartment. Not to buy, not to earn, just to have transferred to his girlfriend's name so he could live in it. When the money stopped, he stopped. That's not love. That's invoicing. She said, age doesn't matter when you love someone. Maybe. But track record matters. He'd done this before. 2 other older women, both financially drained, both left when the money ran out. I wasn't judging their ages. I was reading his resume. The will manipulation was clever. "You'll inherit it back when I die. But wills can be changed. And she could live 40 more years. I'd be giving up my apartment in my 20s based on a promise for my 60s. That's not inheritance planning. That's a con with extra steps." He called me directly once. Voice all friendly, talking about big opportunities coming. That call told me everything. He wasn't trying to connect. He was trying to manage an obstacle. I was the son who might block his housing. Once he realized I wouldn't budge, the friendliness disappeared. She threatened to cut me from her will if I didn't transfer the apartment. A will worth almost nothing because she'd spent it all on him. She was threatening me with an empty inheritance to get me to give up a real apartment. The math didn't even work. The emotion blinded her to it. When he left, he took the last $3,000 from her account. Left a note saying, "Thanks for everything." Not even, "I'm sorry." Just, "Thanks," like she was a hotel he'd checked out of. That note told her what she was to him. Took 18 months and $25,000 to get that clarity. Some lessons are expensive. She asked if keeping my apartment was worth losing my mother. I asked myself, was losing my apartment worth enabling her to be exploited faster? I kept the apartment. She lost everything anyway. But at least I'm here now to help her rebuild. If I'd given the apartment, I'd be broke too. We'd both be starting from nothing instead of just her. Final scene. I was helping my mother set up her new studio apartment. Assembling a bookshelf from IKEA, surrounded by tools and confusing Swedish instructions. She was arranging photos on a small shelf. It's modest, nothing like the photo walls she'd had in the house before the divorce. But it's something. She picked up a photo of me as a child. Maybe 7 or 8. Missing front teeth, covered in mud from playing outside. "I almost threw this away last year," she admitted quietly. "When we weren't speaking. I was so angry at you for not supporting me." She placed it in a central spot on the shelf. "Now I know you were the only one who was supporting me. Everyone else was just taking." I didn't know what to say. So I just kept assembling the bookshelf. Some things don't need words. Just presence. My mother asked me to give my apartment to her so her boyfriend could live in it rent-free. A boyfriend 22 years younger who'd never worked a day of their relationship, who she'd spent $25,000 supporting in 18 months, who had a track record of draining older women financially. She said I'd inherit it back when she died. She said it was about her happiness. She said if I loved her, I'd do it. I said no. She stopped speaking to me. 6 months later he left, took the last $3,000 she had and disappeared to find his next host. She called me crying, finally seeing what I'd seen all along. I could have said I told you so. I didn't. I just helped her pick up the pieces. That's what family actually is, not giving people your apartment when they're making terrible decisions, but being there when the decisions collapse. My apartment is still mine. My mother is still my mother. And the man who wanted to live in my apartment for free is someone else's problem now. She's 55, starting over with almost nothing. But she's starting. And I'm helping her. Not with my apartment, that stays mine, but with everything else. That's the difference between support and surrender. I gave her support. I refused the surrender. And we're both still standing because of it.